Today we're going to look at function standard 2, which is properties of functions on graphs. And our learning target is introduction to slope. So it's not actually a learning target, but it's just going to be a quick introduction to what is slope. So little definitions here. First of all, we're going to relate unit rate to slope. And unit rate is something you've learned in the elementary or even in the middle school. So just a reminder, a unit rate is a rate, put rate in that blank, often used to compare different quantities. So think about when you first learned about unit rates, you did miles per hour or cost per item. Another way to describe unit rate is known as what is new here in 8th grade math, which will be used in Algebra 1 next year, is the idea of slope. So another way to describe that unit rate you've learned in the past is also known as a slope. You might also hear me or a future teacher refer to it as rate of change. So when you think about a unit rate, or now your new word is the slope when it comes to algebra and what you're learning right now, as a ratio is the change of the y variable, I'll put an S at the end, change of the y variables over, and that's a division bar right there, divided by the change of the x variables. So as we go, one of the equations that we will be using is y2, which is the second coordinate of an ordered pair, minus y1, which is the first, or still the y coordinate of the ordered pair, but in the first ordered pair. And then we're going to divide that by the x2 minus x1. Right now, don't worry about that. We'll get there, but just kind of want to show you a pre-image of what's going to happen in this equation. So remember, it's the change of how much the y's are changing over how much the x's are changing. We also algebraically write it as the change, which is a triangle, of the y over the change of the x. So your y variable over your x variable. You might also hear me call it the dependent variable over the independent variable. And I know you've studied that in science. So the dependent, which is always on the y-axis, you graph on the y, and then on the x-axis is the independent. So there's a lot of ways to look at slope. Again, we'll just go through them here. Change of the y over the change of the x is this first one. The dependent variable divided by the independent variable, the change of the y variables over the x variables, or algebraically here, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Types of slopes that we're going to look at in this intro lesson, or just the way those slopes change. Okay, so this first one, go ahead and put the word positive. A positive slope increases from left to right. So as we read graphs, it's just like you read a book, you're going to start on the left side and go to the right. So this is a positive slope. It's going upward. You could also think of it as if you were on the left side here at the bottom of the line, and are you looking upward or downward? Or would you walk upward or downward? And you would definitely walk upward or look upward. So this is a positive slope. The second one we know as a negative slope. So this is a slope that decreases from left to right. So again, start on the left side. Think about if you're sitting up here and you're either going to walk or look, you walk downwards or decrease, which is a negative slope. So positive slopes, we look upwards, or it increases from left to right. Negative slopes, we look downward, or it decreases from left to right. And then we have the next type, which is a zero slope, which is a horizontal line. So if you think about this, again, we're on the left side here of this line, this has zero slope. I kind of think of it like skiing. If you're skiing with a slope of 0, you're skiing on a flat line or flat surface. So this has zero slope. It's not increasing, it's not decreasing. We call this a zero slope, which is a horizontal line. And the last one is a undefined. And an undefined, it's a D, is a vertical line. Okay. So if you're, well, there really isn't a left or right, but we'll put the person up here. If you are looking at this slope, I think again about skiing, if I was skiing this slope right here, I would feel undefined about my feeling about skiing something straight up and down. We'll talk about the math between that here, why this one's undefined and this one's 0. So quickly, you remember it's a change of the y's over the change of the x. Okay, this y, if you're looking at it, if it's flat, the y values aren't changing. Okay, there's no change here in the y's. Okay, the y value, no change here, so that would be a 0. And then your x can change by whatever you want. You can say it changes by 2 units, by 3 units, by 4 units. We'll just go 4. If you take 0 divided by 4, so nothing divided into 4 parts, you're still going to get 0. Hence reason why that is a 0 slope. The other way, if you do the change of the y over the change of the x, the y changes a lot. Okay, and we could say again, this is 4. You could say 5, 1, whatever you want. And then the change of the x going this way, so horizontally or left to right, has 0 change. Now, if you take something that is 4 and you divide it into 0 parts, you mathematically can't do that. And so if you look in your calculator or try this in your calculator, 4 divided by 0, you will know that it's not going to give you an answer. It's going to say error. So that's why in math we call this undefined, because there is no mathematical way that you can divide any number into 0. So because that x has 0 movement left to right, this is an undefined slope. One thing I'm going to go back to here, when we talk about slope, another way we talk about it, that change of your y's, as we know, since it's up and down, your y change, we call that the rise. And we call our x, since that's left and right, we call that our run. So you're going to hear me and your future teachers talk about rise over run. So remember, the rise is up and down, and then the run is left and right. I always make the joke, why do I have to rise in the morning? Why do I have to rise in the morning? Most people think that. They're not morning people. And then you always run from your x. So we're going to go on to the next page here. So we're going to identify the slope shown in each line. So we're going to look at line A. So if you're thinking about, remember we started on the left side and you're looking this way, a horizontal line has a slope of 0. Okay, B here, line B, start on your left side. And if I'm looking at B and I look downward, or I look at decreases from left to right, that means I have a decreasing, or I should say, sorry, negative. Decreasing is what it's physically doing. The slope is negative. C here, again, you can't go left or right, but if you remember, any vertical line is undefined. And then D here from the left side, it increases from left to right, so that is a positive slope. So your next question is list any strategies that help you remember the difference between a graph of an undefined and a 0. Remember, undefined is vertical, 0 is your horizontal. One thing I've seen students remember it, horizontal has a Z in it, and that is a 0 slope, so they both have 0 in it. Another one I've seen kids do is vertical, and vertical goes up and down. And so up is a U, and this is undefined. So just a couple ideas to help you if you struggle with remembering which one is 0 or undefined, or you can just think about the math that I showed you in the previous page. So one example here, this is one of your practices. So I was just going to do the first one with you and look at rise over the run. So when you do rise over the run, you're going to take, and here's your 2 points. So first of all, one thing I noticed is a decreasing graph or a negative graph. So your slope is going to be negative. Okay. Another thing, if you go left to right, you want to go your y's. So this would be your change of your y. So you're just going to sit and count those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or you can look off the side. If it starts at 4 and it went down to -4, that's a difference of 8. So notice that right here, the rise is negative because I went down. Okay. And then your run is always to the right, so it's always positive. And in this case, you rise, or I'm sorry, run 1, 2. So that's why there's a 2 here. And then remember, you go rise over run, or the y's over the x's. And it just kind of depends on how you like to say it or how you look at it, but just pick one way, but be able to be versatile when another teacher uses another word. So your slope, remember it's rise, or the rise, which in this case was -8. So it'd be -8 over that run, which was 2. And then you do want to simplify it. So you can simplify that down to -4 over 1, or some people take it down to straight -4. I hope this lesson helped you, and go ahead now and do the individual practice for lesson 1, Intro to Slope, on page 2.